Learn the most advanced recruiting techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with Rick Girard.
Welcome to this special episode of Higher Power Radio, where we are doing our very first live on-site podcast at the Staples store. And our guest today is Sarah Goggins. She's the Senior Vice President and Chief People Officer of Staples Stores. We had a unique opportunity to sit down with Sarah, and this is just a part of the interview from our conversation. How's this taken a step back in listening to people? How's that benefited the culture here?
Yeah, I think, I spend a lot of time thinking about culture and people. And I think for me, there's this idea of credibility and trust and engagement that I want to be in an organization, and I'm lucky to be in an organization where those things are sort of key elements of culture. And what was so great, so we went on this listening tour earlier this year. Our geographies are broken up into 10 regions.
Wait, what's a listening tour?
Oh, did we not talk about that? So the listening tour, we got this idea from reading an article that basically talked about from an organization called Retail Dive, which is a great retail periodical. The title, and that's really all you need to read to understand why we thought this was a good idea. The title of the article was "The Store of the Future Depends on Employees."
Sure.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But the content in the article was really about get out, do a quote unquote listening tour, literally travel to your people where they are and ask them questions about what matters to them. And then just really listen. Don't answer, don't defend, don't respond unless they ask for perspective, which we were happy to share. But we went out and did this, and it was interesting. We'd sit down with groups of people. So we had 4 conversations in each of our 10 regions. We listened for a total of 75.5 hours. We did that math to figure that out.
Nice.
So it's way more tiring than you might think, just sitting still and really concentrating.
I do that every day, all day long.
Yeah, well,
I just sit and listen to people.
You're probably super good at it. It was a challenge for me. And at the beginning, we had to sort of convince folks that, one, we're trustworthy to hear their sort of true feelings of what was going on, but 2, that we promised we were going to try to do something about it. And I didn't know, by the way, when we set out, I had no idea actually what that would look like or what that would be, because I didn't know what the feedback was going to be. And so this idea of building credibility and follow-up and, just simply doing what you say you're going to do, I think has a very direct impact on culture, which has been positive.
Let's talk about how this translates into hiring, right? Because I think listening helps you hire better. I think we talked about that prior to starting the show.
I think, and I've been chatting to some folks about this who are very smart and who do a lot of hiring in our field environment stores. I think 2 things happen when you really listen. One, and this seems obvious, again, foundational but impactful are things that simple is beautiful. These are things that I love. When you really stop and listen to the candidate that's across the way from you, across the table from you, all of a sudden you're giving them a real chance to express who they are, what they value, what their talents are, how those talents can be applied in your setting. In the business environment, we're all so busy, and hiring managers, no exception. And I hope that resonates so well with your listeners, because the reality is, I know I've got 45 minutes to squeeze in this interview for this role that's super important, but am I thinking about what happens after that 45 minutes ends, or am I really in the moment focusing on this candidate? So I think you really give yourself a real opportunity to assess by listening, which is critical. I think the other thing you do, though, in that moment, when you think about candidate experience and when you think about being an ambassador for your brand or business, whatever that is, you're also demonstrating what kind of leader you are. You're also demonstrating that you're thoughtful, that you really are putting a lot of energy and thought and care into the process. And you're just sort of saying, look, this is how I roll. This is how our organization rolls more broadly. This is the place you want to be. And so I do think there's this element of simplicity in focus that makes a wild difference.
So 2 key things there. You said, one, when you dig down and you understand the person, it gives you the ability to also make sure that you're getting a true sense of who that person is, where they're looking to go, because that's important if you want people to stay with you for a while.
For sure.
All right, you're listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm Rick Girard. For our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors. Find out how healing a person's pain points attracts amazing people to your company. Check out our Passive Talent webinar at stridesearch.com. Today, our guest is Sarah Goggins. She's the Senior Vice President and Chief People Officer for Staples Stores, and we're talking about listening to cultivate growth. So let's dig into a little bit more of the how-to. So you've given us a really good idea of kind of why it's important. How do you do it? How do you train people to listen?
Yeah.
A lot of us don't.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I think, one, I do think the culture of the organization plays a role in molding leaders who, sort of know what the operating norms are.
Sure.
And that's important. I think one of the ways we've been attempting to help people think about being in the moment, this might feel like a little bit of a tangent, but hopefully I'll bring it back. Being in the moment and being thoughtful and being able to sort of deliver a direct message. So I think it's applicable in the hiring setting, but also just more broadly in the kind of leaders we want to cultivate, is this idea of radical candor. And so this is a book by Kim Scott. You probably heard of it, which we love. But the idea of, the sort of framework that Kim talks about in Radical Candor is caring personally so that you can challenge directly. For me, one of the things that's so important to our organization from a cultural standpoint is, first, no matter what you're doing, you need to care personally. You need to sort of invest of yourself. You need to be in the moment. You need to be understanding who the person is across from you. And I think that sort of approach and methodology and framework is one path that can help people understand what you're trying to achieve.
Sure. Where I see a lot of challenge a lot of times is getting the leadership, like the CEO, to listen, right? How do you get the top brass to change what they're doing and to actually listen?
Yeah, this will...
I don't know if you had that challenge, but a lot of companies do.
I will tell you where I'm sitting right now, and this will seem like a shameless plug for our CEO, who I'm a big fan of, who is my boss. Mike Moats joined us.
Somebody's vying for a raise.
Yeah. Oh, he takes good care of his people. He's amazing. This is a guy who is a leader with a level of authenticity that I've not seen in any other leader I've worked with in my career in the top job. And so it's interesting timing. So we were, what I like to call, I described this yesterday to someone, I can't remember who, we were between CEOs for a minute, which meant, I was welcome to call my own shots because that's what I was doing at that moment in time.
Got it.
And that's when the idea of the listening tour was born. And then Mike joined shortly thereafter. And I said, hey, we had the idea to do this thing and off we go. And I thought, geez, might I have to sell this to him in order to keep doing it? Because at that point I was pretty invested and thought we might have something that could be really impactful. And it was literally like the no sell of all time, because he was like, yeah, absolutely. Get out there, do it. Let me know what you hear, how can we make things better? And you might argue he was new in the organization and in his role with us. So yeah, it was a good opportunity for him to kind of learn alongside us.
Sure.
But that's just how he is. I mean, he just wants to know. And so I'm super grateful for the scenario we have in his leadership. And he's such a dyed-in-the-wool retailer, which makes all the difference. If you think of someone in my job leading the charge for HR with a team of super capable HR professionals, getting it done day in and day out, I want my whole team to feel like, if that wasn't the case, and maybe if I didn't care about it, you have to be, as an HR professional, whether that's in the talent acquisition space or the L&D space or the OD, whatever it is, benefits, it doesn't matter. You've got to be painting this picture of importance within your organization. And I admit that can be an uphill battle, and I've worked in other organizations where it's been much harder. But I just feel like, someone said to me today, HR people are kind of dull. That might have stuck with me.
I don't know who that was.
But I think to break the mold of how HR people are sometimes seen, find something that really matters in your organization and just go after it. And maybe don't ask permission. Just start doing it. I think you actually can have great luck that way.
Yeah, you're always better off asking for forgiveness than permission, right?
Totally.
I think you said that to me the other day. All right, so then let's talk about how you teach somebody how to listen. Because some people don't know. I have a hard time sometimes. Yeah.
I get in a little bit of trouble at home in this space, even though I try really hard professionally. So I think there's a couple of key rules going in that are important.
Okay.
Again, these are not groundbreaking. No one will fall off of their comfy stool. One, I think you have to tell yourself, my job in this conversation is to listen and not speak.
To shut up.
Shut up and listen.
Right.
So you have to go in with that mindset first and foremost. I think, like we're sitting now, being able to look in someone's eyes, I'm not trying to get weird on anyone, is important.
It's so romantic.
It is important to be able to say, when you're asking someone what matters to them, to look at their face and say, I'm a human, you're a human. I really care what you're about to tell me. And stay right there.
So hide the cell phones.
this is a shameless plug. We had an event at another location yesterday, and the topic was screenagers, which was about sort of the perils of screen time. And I am not a teenager, clearly.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I thought, oh my gosh, I got to change my life. I'm a disaster. Put it away. Put the phone away. The other really important thing is to, and again, this might sound a little squishy to people. Here goes the fluffy HR lady, is just be in the moment.
Be present.
Be present. When I have another favorite quote, that is believe in now. Whatever you're doing right now is the most important thing you're doing. The person you're with is the most important person. You've got to get your mindset that you're going to focus and be right there. Be in that moment right there. It's hard. And even in those sort of planned sessions where we were there with the intent to listen, I felt myself at times, I've got a little guy at home and it's like, oh, he's getting out of school. I wonder you really have to try. It's a meaningfulness and a mindfulness that is necessary.
So I'm trying to listen now. And it's funny because I think my brain's thinking, okay, I've got some things that I want to say. And you got to get yourself out of that habit, right? You need to get yourself into the habit of, okay, keep going.
This actually could be an occupational hazard for you.
I know. I feel like I'm in therapy right now.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I get help.
All right. We've got be present. We've got turn off everything. Make sure that you're all about that person. What else?
You forgot to mention eye contact, Rick.
Eye contact.
Does that make you uncomfortable?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
I see dead people sometimes.
No, I don't. I mean, I think that's the list. For me, that's sort of my going in ahead game is to just get in there, be present, listen, don't speak, and actually say you're not going to speak. That's like a bold thing to do, right? When you're, really wanting to hear what the other person has to say, look, I'll answer when you want me to or when you're interested in my perspective, but my role in this conversation is actually not to respond, which sort of, sometimes you feel a lot of pressure to say something. Quiet is hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But say you're not going to speak. Say, I'm just literally going to be here with you and listen. That's it. Unless you ask me and then look I've got something to say.
So what have been the results of this so far?
So it's been good. I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat this with all this positivity.
It's been hard too, right?
It's been super hard. And we have, as an organization, as all of your listeners, I'm sure, will think in whatever setting they're in, there are things that are really hard that we're dealing with. You think about the retail environment, we're talking about hiring, and listening is great, but only if you get candidates coming through the door. I mean, the environment is super competitive. The wage pressure from our competitive mass retailers, it's really hard. And we heard about these things loud and clear. So what people shared with us it was amazing. And some days, honestly, at the end of sessions, I literally was like, holy smokes, what are we going to do? I mean, these are hard challenges. But I think what I feel really proud of as a person and a leader is that we did what we said we were going to do, which is we created sort of a readout and a report of what we heard. And we tried to do that in the most thoughtful, sort of conscientious way I felt a lot of pressure actually to do proud the people who sort of gave of their time and energy to share.
Sure.
And we're working on it. We're trying to move the needle. We're going to make some meaningful changes directly related to what people told us with so much support from our senior leadership team. Again, not a hard sell on my part, but having the gift of the opportunity to sort of be the conduit to that. I mean, I feel like I'm winning the lottery. It's amazing.
I'm meeting some of your people here today. One of the things that I learned that I was pretty impressed by was the fact that you guys have done a great job in listening and getting people, giving them a path, giving them that growth path. And that's something a lot of companies, if you don't listen and you don't understand where somebody's looking to go in their career, you're just going to totally miss that. And they're going to go off and work somewhere else. God, several people here today that started at a store and now they're at the VP level. That's really impressive.
It's super impressive.
Yeah.
I didn't actually, so just full disclosure, so I've been with the company for a little over 4 years. And in HR, you come in and you assess and you try to understand what the workforce looks like and what's the talent pool. And I was meeting so many people with tons of tenure. And I thought, whoa, first of all, that says something about the organization that people have stuck around. 1.
Sure.
2, just from a pure sort of HR hat perspective, I thought, geez, some of this is not good. Why? Why would people stay? And it hasn't, I mean, and then again, your own sort of personal bias, it's not been my path. Worked a long time at certain companies, but not these lengths of time
not
that I was
20
hearing.
years.
Yeah. And so I would ask people, what kept you? And either one is, I've had a really interesting career path. I've done a bunch of different things. Or 2, I've been on this path in this sort of growth trajectory that has made this my career, I've not needed, to your point, I've not needed to say, okay, now is the time where I'm going to go somewhere else in order to sort of meet my next goal or my next sort of career level path that I've set for myself. So
it's because you're too busy listening.
Well, yeah, I have so much to learn. It's amazing.
Growth.
Yep.
Right? You're learning.
Yep.
All right. So we're getting about toward the end of the show. So what would be 3 main takeaways that you want to share with the audience and how they can listen?
Yeah, I'm going to look at my notes because I really did think about the solutions. So 3 big takeaways. 1 is make time to listen. Number 1. You have to make time.
Absolutely.
You have to, period. 2 is, I'm just going to think through the lens of the transformation that's happening at Staples right now. When you get to know people and when you know the path they want and when you sort of believe in the talent and skill of the people around you, I know, Rick, you're so focused on talent acquisition and hiring, but oftentimes our first go-to is internal, as we've talked about. And what I've seen and even in this trip over the last couple of days, people right now, internal talent, are doing things that we might not have thought was possible. And I think when you give people an opportunity to prove to you and show you, if you're listening and watching and paying attention, people will amaze you. And I think finding ways to give those opportunities, that's what keeps people.
Well, people want to do well at work.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go into work and do sucky.
Yeah.
That's no fun. All right.
You asked me that question on Thursday after the red eye tonight, and I might be doing sucky. I don't know.
Well, yeah, right. What else? One more takeaway? Or
I think, I guess the only other thing I would say, and again, looking through the lens of your listenership, is new things are happening all the time, regardless of the size of your organization, the sort of place you are from an, kind of corporate life cycle perspective. And so I feel like this idea of reinvention or transformation can happen at any time, big or small. And so I think finding those opportunities to say what's changing, how do we need to evolve? And then I think from a hiring perspective, from an HR perspective, it's like, what new do we need? And I would always argue look internally first and then figure out if you need to go outside for the talent. But I guarantee there's great talent around you.
I always promote look within first. Sarah, thanks so much for your time investment today. And I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. You did an awesome job.
Thank you.
Let's give her a round of applause, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your insight. Now, what would be the best plug time? Like, what would be the best way for members of our community to reach you, to find out more?
Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn.
Okay.
My email is super easy also. It's just sarah.goggins@staples.com. I'd love to hear from anybody what's going on.
And how do they find out about getting this cool space?
Yeah, so this is the big plug. So Staples is not the place that you remember. Please visit. If you're in Southern California, for sure, we have 14 stores that are embarking on this amazing path to transformation via the Spotlight space. Tons of interesting content, opportunities to learn and grow and meet people. The key word for us right now is community. And so I feel like this is such a cool illustration of community with your listeners, with all of these awesome people who have made time today to come here and listen. But come into a Staples store, meet our team. Whether they're part of the pilot or not, I think they are the folks who are going to make the transformation of our organization a success, and they're doing it every single day, whether that's helping this adorable little gal find what she needs for school, or they're helping you grow your business, or they're helping you in our print and marketing department. There's so much happening at Staples, and our people will blow your mind. So come to one of our 14 stores in SoCal to visit and experience Spotlight. Or if you're anywhere else in the universe, just come in and we'd love to see you and help you. And we'd love to welcome you to be a part of our community.
And it's free, right?
FREE.
Love it. All right. I want to thank our listening audience for tuning into this week's episode of Higher Power. Quick thanks to our team, our engineer, Paul Roberts, our producers, Andrea Ballin, Shanti Ryle, and our creative producer, who's over there, Ayla Gerard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. We are listening, and we love your feedback. After all, this show's for you. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, that's H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, R-A-D-I-O.com, or drop me a line at rick@stridesearch.com. I'm your host, Rick Gerard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power with Rick Gerard on OC Talk Radio.